run your favourite cricket team better than those who do. But no one is going to let you do that. So why not try Wicket Cricket Manager to satisfy that urge? Pick your nation, pick your league, pick your players, and yell at them when they do poorly. You can find it in the links below or by searching for Wicket Cricket Manager in your app store today. If you're enjoying these live chats, our main channel has even more World Cup videos looking at the greatest performances, the quirkiest stats, and the epic tales of World Cup cricket. Cricket is about partnerships, and this show was made in partnership with HCLTech. Yeah, the company you see on the Australian shirts. Supercharge your technology with them today. Morning, everyone. This is the scoreboard. And England attacked by nibbling a fucking Angelo Mathews wobbler on a length outside off stump, and two childhood teammates pairing up to run out Joe Root. I hear a lot of talk about how England have attacked a lot in this World Cup. About them recklessness and intent and all this sort of stuff. And I don't know, what I see from England is all the certainty of a first-time parent trying to take a splinter out of a small boy's testicle at this point. Absolutely. I don't know where all this idea is that they're running down the wicket and playing mad shots. They're just not playing very well, no matter what their shots are. At least if they went down swinging, we would say, well, fair fucks to them. They win the moral World Cup. They haven't even done that. I mean, we have Ben Stokes dead batting the ball out there. Is this a good use of the last bit of his, synovial fluid out of his knee, just knocking the ball around, watching all of his teammates go out around him? So many half-ass shots. And, Johnny Bairstow played his like a man who was worried if he'd left the stove on, right? Their whole World Cup, it's the illusion of attacking. It's a wet fart, right? Their whole World Cup has been like that. Not even a follow-through at this stage. They're just sitting there, not sure if they need to go and wipe or change their underwear. That is their entire World Cup. Anyway, Sri Lanka also played in this game, and they did very well. Let's go check the tape. Sri Lanka's bowling this tournament. So this is the complete bowling map of this tournament. And you can see Sri Lanka up here. You're doing bad when you're up with England and Pakistan and Bangladesh, but they've been averaging 46.53 per wicket in this tournament, and they're the most expensive team at 6.44. Fine, we anyone who's been following the tournament will know that, but they did start with just a ton of injuries, right? And also, on top of all their injuries, they also went with a very young lineup. They already had a young lineup, and they went even younger. Then they got put in on a bunch of bad batting wickets, or good batting wickets, I should say, but bad for their bowlers, certainly. And so, this, I think it certainly, it was a terrible start, and there are a lot of factors in that. But what I wanted to show was this, which I did find quite interesting. So this is them in the tournament so far. This is their bowling over the first 3 games. An average of, let's round it up, let's round it down. We'll just say it's 75. We won't even go up to the full 76. At 7.38 and over. Yes, there were bad wickets. Yes, they had young players. Yes, they had injuries. All of those things are fine. Not sure it justifies where they were. But this is the last 2 games. They've been averaging 24 at an economy at 4.92. There are, we have to mention that they have bowled on pitches that have helped their bowlers a little bit more. They have also brought in a lot more experienced bowlers. This is not a joke about Angelo Mathews, who I suppose doesn't count as an experienced bowler at this point, but he's experienced. But they've brought in some of their older bowlers. Patharana was injured, of course, so he's gone home. Wellalage didn't work. I think we all had a lot of high hopes for him, and the only thing that was high was the sixes that was hit off him, if we're being honest in this one. And they looked like lost boys. And yes, this might have something to do with the pitches and England and the Netherlands as well. But it's a hell of a turnaround. No matter how you look at it, I thought they bowled really well today. I really like the lengths that they bowled. They seem to get a little bit more movement off the surface. And to be fair, the England bowlers did as well. But, compared to some of the other games when I've watched the Sri Lankans, it's just that little bit more sideways movement. Still not their full strength lineup, right? It'd be hard to argue that it's full strength lineup when you're trotting Angelo Mathews out as your Partharana replacement, which was all very, very bizarre. But anyway, I thought they did very well the way that they bowled. They dried up the boundaries from overs 5.4 until 14.1. There were no boundaries. And it's the lowest ever first innings total at Chinnaswamy. So, hey, that's certainly something. But let's get to the old fella who, I'll be honest, when Angelo Mathews was and I don't know if there's a bigger Angelo Mathews fan than me. Peak Angelo Mathews. I wanted him in the Fab Four. I might have gone a bit hard on that, a bit early on that. I might have been massively wrong on that. But I love the way he batted, and I was probably there for one of his greatest innings, the one in Headingley, where he was absolutely extraordinary in the Test matches. But let's be honest, it's he's past his peak career, but probably by a lot at this point, right? And he's not the physical beast he used to be. Was it? I might have been there when did he take 3 wickets in the first over of a game against the West Indies at the Oval? Second World T20. I think I was there for that one as well. So I've seen a lot of his highs. He doesn't quite look like that anymore, of course. He's certainly very, very different. And let's just have a look at his bowling, because I remember when he took Nicholas Pooran's wicket in the 2019 World Cup. And when he took that wicket, Sri Lanka looked like they were going to lose that game. And if I remember correctly, and I don't want to put words in Fidel's mouth, but if I remember correctly, Fidel Fernando said something along the lines of, the old man comes in and takes a wicket. Well, we're 4 years on, and how much? Oh, have I got the wrong graphic up here? Have I? Oh, well, I'll get to this in a minute, but I just want to show how little he's bowled. So you can see he has this sort of peak area in here when he bowls. A little bit, not masses, but a little bit, certainly in those games. And he's frequent enough here that you see him occasionally. This is the Nicholas Pooran one. And we can see that he hasn't even played ODIs, I don't think, in all these years either. And then we just come down here and we just got this little one just here at the end. So he hadn't bowled in a one-day international since 2020. And of course, he becomes the destroyer against England. I mean, what more does England need to do to just tell us that they want to go home? They'd be dismissed, have 2 wickets to Angelo Mathews. I think he got the run out as well, didn't he? I mean, just phenomenal. And as I said, when he was put into the squad, I was like, what are they doing? Why is Angelo Mathews coming back? Well, I had no idea that we were talking about peak fast bowling Angelo Mathews, just steaming through the crease at like 73 miles an hour. Absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, just have a look at his appearances. So he wasn't in Sri Lanka's World Cup plans. So the 36-year-old looks a little older than that, doesn't he? But he was a beast when he was young. We all remember that, right? He probably took, I think, one of the first great boundary catches, the boundary rope ones of throwing it back in that I'd ever seen. Just an incredible athlete, and now he looks like that athlete's uncle, right? He played 10 games of the 56 50-over matches that Sri Lanka played between the 2019 and 23 World Cups. So that was this graphic here. So this is your core, right? These are the players that are sort of first choice. Obviously, the captain's up the top. Then you've got the other guys who, you're trying to get as much experience into as possible, right? Then you've probably got here, at best, this is a couple of older guys and maybe a couple of younger guys that they're looking at. He wasn't supposed to be here, right? Very Dante from Clerks vibes on Angelo Mathews. It's just absolutely great that he then comes out and takes the wickets. And we'll show you the wickets later. But the one to David Milan is actually a good ball. The one to Moeen Ali, I don't know how many people are on this chat at the moment, but I would say the vast majority of those people could bowl a ball of similar quality than the one that got Moeen Ali. It wasn't a good ball at all. And absolutely great to watch. I mean, the one thing that we have missed, and going through the history of World Cups, is we used to have a lot more dibbly-dobbly bowlers, and it's sad that we don't have as many. I think Vikram's done a good effort for the Netherlands at times. Who else have we had bowling just dog ordinary medium pace? There haven't been, those kinds of bowlers don't exist the same way they do. We have Virat Sova, of course, and now we have Angelo Mathews, who's an absolute genius at the craft. And let's have a look at the Sri Lankan batting. let's have a look at this. Oh, so I would say that considering, we knew that they came in as a bowling side, they didn't bowl very well, but their power play batting, probably more so than their batting altogether, but the power play batting of Sri Lanka has really held up here. So you can see that outside of India, they're the second fastest batting team in the power play at the moment, which is fantastic. I love the fact that they did that again today. They could have knocked it around. I think it was it the Netherlands game? When I actually thought they probably, and this might come back to haunt them, they probably gave up a chance, I think, in that Netherlands game to get a net run rate boost, partly because they hadn't been playing very good cricket at that point. Did Muku just change the colors midway through this? It's creepy. Something flashed on my screen anyway, and I'm pretty sure that wasn't the color that Sri Lanka was a minute ago. Anyway, so they're the second fastest, and we've seen that before. Weirdly, between the cycles, I don't think they were a particularly fast power play batting team. So a lot of this is probably from Kusal Mendes. Too many Kusals, too many Brads, too many Mitches, too many Kusals. Kusal Mendes, the sort of player who, obviously had exploded in this World Cup and loved those batting wickets early on. But the other thing that's interesting is that's fine. They're the second fastest, but they're also doing okay on average, right? So what are they? Fourth over here, I think, altogether. I think Australia's got a lot of praise for the way they've gone about their power play, and Sri Lanka have done a little bit better so far. So well done to them for that. And we'll talk about the batting just a little bit more. Obviously, it was more of a bowling day, but I suppose you could make the argument that England played a fairly big part in the rest of that. But Samara Wickrama and Nissanka, the most runs for them in the World Cup. It shows you that Mendes has stalled after those couple of innings at the start where he looked absolutely brilliant. But Nissanka, he's been averaging in this World Cup cycle 38 at a strike rate of 84. On the other hand, Sidira played, I think it's all but one of his 17 games in 2023. So they made a very late decision to sort of bring him in. He was brought back for the ODI series against Afghanistan in June. And then obviously after that point, Sri Lanka just played like an absolute ton of ODIs. So he's actually, it would be unfair to say he's very well experienced, but he played a lot of ODIs in a small space, which has clearly helped him a lot. The World Cup qualifiers, the Asia Cup, and then they played New Zealand, I think, beforehand as well. It's the longest run he's had in the side. Again, Nissanka looked in really good form today. He played that cover drive early on, didn't he? And despite the two early wickets, both of them played quite positive in the power play, which goes back to our last bit. And I thought they did very well with Rashid as well. So Sri Lanka played very well. It's the second game in a row they've played. It's really interesting to me that so many people have got very excited with them. I thought the Netherlands game was okay. And in this game, I wanted to say more positives about them. There's nothing negative to say, but there isn't a lot to say that suggests that they were absolutely brilliant today. A little bit of good bowling. England got 2 run-outs, so maybe you would say that the fielding played a part, although perhaps you would argue that there was more to do with England's batting again, or they're running between wickets. I don't know. Anyway, let's get to England's running between wickets. Let's get to England because if you're in a good mood, I suppose for a lot of people, this will put you in a good mood, although watching them bat probably wouldn't. So this one here, part of the reason that this is such a bad run out is also just because of the way that it bounces up. So if you have a look at what Joe Root does here, he actually knocks this into the ground in a way that any fielder in the world is going to find it easier to pick this up. It's a really important thing that you, if you're a young batter watching this, you actually want the fielder to be able to bend down and pick it up, because that brings in more errors, right? The further your eyes are from your hands, all that sort of stuff, bending over, the grass is there, all that sort of stuff. This ball just really sits up and is absolutely perfect to be taken. There's miscommunication between the two. Joe Root kind of stutters twice on this. Also, can I show this? Please let me show this again. Just this bit here. Here it is. Look at these stumps. This is not like a delicate little, I'm going to take the bails off. One of them goes like halfway up the wicket. Look at where that stump is. It's past the danger area. Kusal Mendes, take a bow. So that was obviously one of the runouts there. And there was another one later back on as well. There's really no reason to have this kind of a miscommunication. At this stage, England was still doing really well, right? There will be talk about the and you think about it, the one wicket they'd lost at this point was Angelo Mathews nibbling one away, and we'll get to that Dawid Malan shot later and everything else. But England weren't in a bad position, and this was a horrible bit of running between these two. As I said, I think Root kind of makes like two half decisions. Bairstow, it's behind point, isn't it? So it's Bairstow's call. Bairstow's also quite a bit down the crease, although to be fair to him, I don't think he ever really looked like running. And I think Root wanted the run, but was waiting for Bairstow to confirm it. And good work by Mathews. I mean, he's not the athlete he was obviously many, many years ago. And yes, the ball bounced up into his hand, but he still got it back very, very quick. And just so we can just have a look one more time here. Look at this stump. Sorry. Anyway, you don't need that. But these are the sorts of things that I really enjoy in cricket. Anyway, a pull from them. Well done from Mathews. And this kind of started it all. And when you think about it, they were, 57 for 1 around the 10th over at this point. They only had another 100 runs. For those who don't know, in the old World Cup games, the ones in England, and I think this stops after we leave England. I don't think this happens in 87 when we go to Pakistan and India. But in the old World Cup games, they were 60 overs. I think they were all 60 overs or 55 overs, but certainly more than 50 overs. And then because it was extra time and because one-day cricket was still new, they would actually stop for lunch earlier in the play. And all I could think of today was, are England going to make the old lunch break with this innings? And I don't think they did. Anyway, let's go to the next run out, shall we? Although this is the wrong ball. Oh, no, this is the right ball, isn't it? God, I've forgotten what this one is. I've been so busy looking at England being collapsing to so many different deliveries at the moment. I completely forgot. I don't know if we've got the best replay of that then. Have we? Oh, now I've lost the whole thing. Yeah, so it's Tikshana again. Yeah, you can't quite see it. It is the right ball, but you can't quite see it. So what happens here is Adil Rashid kind of leaves the crease after the ball. So he follows through and then he walks down. Let me try and bring it back for you a little bit. And you can just see here. Yeah, now we're getting somewhere. You can just see Kusal Mendes actually fling the ball down. So you see him take his glove off and he's actually looking out. And I don't know if this was a tactic or anything else. Just there, you see him look back and he sees that Adil Rashid is midway down the crease. And then you see, I think his arm come up here and fires that ball in. There we go. Oh, and he manages to run Adil Rashid. It's just a weird dismissal. And I think CS wrote about this, that you look at the two, for all the talk about all the wickets and the way England batted and everything, the two runouts it's a miscommunication at the start. And then Adil Rashid is just not focused, right? And Adil Rashid is, I don't want to use the thing that we talk about a lot with Adil Rashid, but he's got 10 first-class hundreds. Like, I know he bats down the order and he's not that batter anymore, but he's a proper player. He's used to running between the wickets. This is just a lack of focus and just an error that absolutely did not need to happen at all. It's a really weird one that he was in that position. And well done to Kusal Mendes for A, seeing the gap, and then B, pinging that ball down so quickly. I liked it. So it's not quite as dramatic as the other run out because the stump stayed in the right position. But I like to think that Kusal Mendes threw it as hard as he could to try and make the stumps collapse there. But I mean, this is certainly something when it comes to. This is certainly something that, again, it just shows that England isn't quite on it, right? And I think that's the best way of looking at it. Talking about England not being quite on it. So Ben Jones tweeted here that it's light years difference between how England played in the two different ones here. So if you look at England, they average 24 runs per wicket when rotating a shot. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but my memory in ODI cricket is you should be averaging around 50 or 60. Not quite as safe as defending, of course, but it's right up there. Like the best ODI players in the world can rotate pretty well. And England just are not doing that at all, which again shows that a lot of people will talk about the attacking, but that's not where they've been losing a lot of their wickets. A lot of their wickets have been fallen just trying to get off strike as well. And if you look at the difference, I think we've got the defensive shots here. But if you look at the difference here, India and South Africa combined have averaged 473 when rotating the strike. And that's including Aiden Markram, who's someone who's always struggled with this. So that's a huge difference between them. And that is what England was so good at during that last cycle. This is wickets lost to defensive shots in this World Cup. Again, England's really high on this list. And I wouldn't, I think I sent this off to Cheyenne and I hadn't even really had a look at it. This is the opposite, A, of how they're perceived. People are talking about how they're over-attacking. Well, they're not even defending well, right? And B, that they're not only are they defending more than they should be, they're not defending well when they defend. We've also got here, this is Buttler versus Seam in this World Cup. So years ago, when I was for Melbourne Stars, when I was doing analysis, I sent in some analysis, which probably didn't go down particularly well, where I said you should have 2 slips for Joss Buttler, and I would consider 3. And I'm trying to remember if it was a final or maybe it was a game we had to win to get into the finals or something like that. And, it didn't go down brilliantly well. But the point is kind of what you can see here. And it's how he went out today, that if you can get the ball outside of his eye line a little bit, on a length outside off stump, you do actually cause him a little bit of problems. And what you can see with this particular pattern is if you slightly overpitch it, you're toast, right? This is the only one. I'm assuming this is another dismissal here, but you can see here, if you slightly overpitch it, generally he's going to hit it for 4. He's going to ease that ball through the offside. His timing is incredible. But if you can hit just that little bit back, he will still try and push the ball through the offside. He'll get on his front foot and do that. And we'll see the wicket later on of what happened there. This feels like something quite interesting, because why I think this is different is that this is something that is happening in India. And I had this planned for Australian conditions. And I'm wondering now if teams have just worked out that it works everywhere against him. It's a very, very interesting one. There's lots of different things that we can look at. But I've started a project which I call, why does Jared Kimber have to look at every single wicket that England have lost in this World Cup? It may not be the final title that we use on YouTube. But those YouTube videos, or you see them on Twitch or on TikTok as well, where it's like someone like reacting to something. Like, I wonder if I should just show all of England's wickets and then just me in a little box like this, just looking depressed all the way through, or angry, or frustrated, or whatever, or laughing. Whatever my reactions are. Anyway, the goggle box of England's batting at this World Cup. But let's start here. So this is the first wicket, and you can see with this one here, this is a slow but good ball. Pitches on about leg stump and nips across a little bit. And I think all things considered, Dawood Malan is probably trying to guide this down to third, and we've seen everyone do this. And maybe this ball is a little bit better than what he thinks it's going to be, and it nibbles away a little bit more. Opening batters go out like this sometimes. Sometimes they try and run a single down. Absolutely fine. It's not the end of the world, that particular dismissal, right? Especially if you're facing a medium pacer who hasn't bowled in 3 years, you probably think to yourself, he's not going to pitch one on leg and cut it right across me. I'll probably be able to guide this down. That's also a shot that Dawood Malan plays. This isn't about giving people a pass or anything else, but that's not an overly attacking shot, right? This shot from Bairstow, yeah, well, let's have a look at this, shall we? So this one from Bairstow, I want you to have a look at his foot here. This is a length ball. And what he's done here is you can see where his feet have ended up. It's a length ball just above the bails. And I saw this described online as a pull shot. Might have even been CricViz or someone else, but I think it was another analyst who said he's been struggling with the pull shot and he's done that. This isn't a pull shot. right? This is the kind of shot you play, and I know this as a club slogger, very aware of what this shot is. This is the kind of shot you play when you really want to play an attacking shot, and you've kind of made the decision beforehand, and then the ball comes, and it's not really full, and it's not really short, and it's not really wide, and so you just kind of try and force it. This is probably of all the dismissals, and we'll go through them. We'll go through all the ones. We've already shown the runouts. We might as well show them all. This is probably the one where I thought to myself, well, this is just an attacking shot gone wrong. Weirdly enough, not really the case with everyone else. Okay, so we've got rid of Milan and Bairstow. And let's have a look. I think it's Butler next, isn't it? Yeah, we get it. You took the catch. Look, good zinc work there. Oh, my God. How have I managed to do that? Oh, we'll try this again. So, yeah, Milan, Bairstow, and I'm just going to do a pause here on the zinc. I think massive zinc is going out of fashion in cricket. So well done to Regista there for his excellent work. Anyway, shall we? So if you go back here, I'll take it back just ever so slightly. All right. So it's a length ball, but it's quite wide. And you probably do attack this. I don't think he's made a mistake on the width or anything there. It was wide enough. That's just it bouncing, isn't it? Just about there. I hate when the missing frames don't show me the bounce. Anyway, first world problems. But you can see that's wide, even with the angle that he brings it back in. I think it just maybe marginally straightens away, but it may not. And then you've got this. So this is what we were talking about before. Trying to drive, that ball's probably going to go above the stumps. It doesn't quite look like it from this angle, but my guess is from the beehive that we saw before, this is one of the balls that is, just going above the stumps. Butler has his head pretty much over the ball. His feet are completely set at this stage. He's not a big mover of his feet, so we're not expecting him to be massively out. Maybe he could have moved his feet a little bit more to this. We've seen Butler hit these balls for four over and over again. He's not over attacking. He's got a straight blade, just trying to play this shot. Obviously, gets a big thick edge and it goes through. Perhaps he was a little bit late on it. Perhaps he played the wrong line, or if it just holds off the pitch, whatever. Again, though, to go back to my point, he's not over attacking here. All right, what have we got next, everyone? Good catch too, because some good work in the field from him today, eh? We go. No. I want to watch Kusel's catch again. Right? Yeah, look at that. He's diving. Anyway. All right, what have we got next here? Okay, so we've got Livingston. This one's interesting, and I will try and slow this down as much as I can for you. Good angle in. This pitch is, I'm going to say, about a foot outside off stump. And it's important to note that because look at the way it darts back in here. And that is actually going to hit the top of leg stump, according to Hawkeye at the end. My initial thought here was that Livingston was doing a little bit like what Bairstow, and decided beforehand to attack and then got probably too good a ball. That's still possibly the case. Then I thought perhaps what had happened is that he'd been beaten a little bit by pace, or he'd played up the wrong line. But I actually think that this is a slightly better ball than it looks like even on this. But you can see there the deviation. It's angling in, but it does nip back really violently right there. I still think that what's his name? Livingston made a decision that this ball was going to go beforehand. I wanted to put the pressure back on a little bit. But when I originally saw this, I saw so many faults in it. And the more I've looked at it over and over again now, the more I think this was a really good ball. Perhaps he could have, he's got a straight bat to it and everything, doesn't he? Perhaps he could have waited to see what the ball was going to be before he tried, an aggressive shot. I think that's fair. Not always the way that England play. And hitting the top of leg, he reviewed that, didn't he? And just got away with it. Oh, no, this one. Oh, my God, I forgot about this one. All right. So Moeen Ali, again, this is a rank ball, right? I'll show you the full bit of it in a minute, but this is a rank ball. It's a short ball pitched on, I'm going to say middle, but from that angle, at that pace, this ball should go. And I would say if the score was 222 for 5 and Moeen Ali is in, he probably just yanks this over deep mid wicket for 6, right? And we've certainly seen Angelo Mathews drop short before and get absolutely walloped by really good players. Instead, this is the sort of shot that I was talking about before. It's kind of like a wishy-washy half attempt shot. He doesn't really know. This is the sort of shot you play when the rest of your batting lineup isn't in particularly good form. And perhaps Moeen you could throw in there as well. Not in particularly good form. It's such a pathetic shot. And look, he's managed to do the sort of shot that you see. This is how people used to go out to Joel Garner, right? Or Courtney Walsh, right? Of like, oh, it's a scary short ball and I'm going to scoop it up to point or scoop it up to gully. You probably shouldn't be doing this off this bowling. And I'll show you why. Oh, did they not get the speeds? We just missed the speeds. Oh, we just missed the speeds. But I can tell you, I went back and looked at this on the full replay. It was about 75 miles an hour. You probably shouldn't be getting bounced out at 75 miles an hour. I'm not sure you would call this bounced out. But yeah, not ideal. All right. And then we have Chris Wokes. So let's go back through this. It's a length ball, maybe even a full ball, outside off stump. Deserves to go. Most times in this World Cup, this is probably getting slashed away to what? Backward point, we say 2. Really good batter, maybe hits it in front of cover, out toward extra cover, gets a couple of balls there, gets a couple of runs there. Of course, Wokes does it, brought back into this game, and he's caught. I could go on and on about this catch too as well. It's one of my favorite things. You know, when people say that, you know, DRS should replace umpire's call. Did you see the footage of this shot that was put up online? Honestly, it looked like Minecraft. It was so pixelated. Anyway, again, this is a wide ball that Chris Wokes is supposed to be playing a shot to. Maybe he doesn't quite fully commit to it. But either way, you play this shot 100 times and you get away with it. And this is the saddest one, of course, coming up, which is the Ben Stokes one. I'll let it play, actually, and then we'll come back to it. It's a short ball. He's been blocking for ages. Everyone's been going out. He whacks it and doesn't quite get it. And, of course, it goes out to the deep mid-wicket here. So maybe, is it a slower ball? Just having a look at his hands. Might have just rolled his hands on that a little bit. But it's not a good ball, again. And could have been hit anywhere. And, of course, on this day, there's nothing wrong with Ben Stokes playing this. It's 137 for 7. They're in the 30th over. It's given a short ball. Perhaps the only thing you could say is he could be as hard as possible along the ground. It's hard to blame him today. And then what else do we have coming up here? Oh, this is fine. This is Mark Wood getting stumped. We're fine with this. Absolutely fine. And I think what happens sometimes is we remember, you know, a couple of dismissals at the end and we start to bring them together. And the other thing with all this is that the narrative around England is that they are so aggressive and so reckless in the way they play. Well, I've just taken you through all those. I think you're hard-pressed to say that they lost their wickets through being reckless. Right? There's a couple of half shots. There was a couple of shots that those players, you know, Wokes and Butler shot, you would say they would normally do. Perhaps Livingston went a little bit too hard on what ended up being a far better ball than he probably assumed it was going to be. And part of the reason he probably reviewed it is because afterwards he realized that it had done quite a bit off the pitch. Bairstow's is the only one, and Bairstow, I suppose, Wood at the end, where you're just like, you know, that was England going over the top. There's not a lot there. And so if you're an England fan, I don't know what to say. I saw Kate Cross on the coverage talking about the fact that what do you do when all your bowlers and all your batters are out of form? And that is the question that I lived in constant fear of when I was an analyst. And occasionally it happened. And it is not an easy thing to answer. And you look at this and you would say, and I think we might have done this on Pakistan. And, you know, I asked Bayram, like, what players are playing at the level that you expect them to be playing at the moment. What England players do you think were playing at the level? Reece Topley? I think Adil Rashid, considering how he's bowled in the last couple of years, perhaps he's at around the level that I expected him to be at. Am I missing someone? Is there another England player? I mean, you could almost argue that Harry Brook did a better job. He's not in the side, of course, at the moment. It's been, and maybe David Willey came in and bowled well. I thought he bowled well at times today. Is that it? I'm trying to even remember how he went in the other game. Like, sometimes you just have a situation where everyone is playing shit. And Nasser Hussain talked about the fact that it's not like there's a better squad out there. I think, let's say this was India, or I'm trying to think there's another team. Probably only India. You know, if you had a situation with India where they were playing really bad, I think we saw this in the last World Cup, in the T20 World Cup, where you could actually point to the bench and go, there's some good players there. I think I would still say that overall they had the majority of the best players and it wasn't a selection issue. But I could understand how you would do that. What are you pointing to? England fans were desperate to get Harry Brook. And while I thought he was okay, he certainly hasn't been a difference maker in this particular tournament. Liam Livingstone looked incredible right up until the point at which this World Cup has started. England obviously wanted Ben Stokes back. Today, he kind of played the innings that they, I suppose, brought him back for, that sort of insurance innings. And there was no one else, and then when he tries to play the attacking shot, he goes out, and there was no one else really with him at that point. Like, it's just all gone to shit. And I think sometimes you have to embrace that and accept it. And I won't. And I will go through every single England wicket, and I will see if there are any patterns, and if there is anything from it, or if it was just dumb luck. And at the moment, I'm leaning towards just dumb luck. Anyway, thank you very much to everyone for being on this chat on Scoreboard today. But that's not the end. Don't go yet. Made that sound like it was ending. If you want to ask a question today, the best place to do it is on the super chats. And thank you so much to the people who have been doing that. But every comment, every like, every subscribe, all those things help. I'm going to take a short break. When we come back from that break, I will go through the questions that, I'm assuming there might be some angry English fans who might have some questions that they want answered. You are watching the Scoreboard with Jared Kimber. This video is brought to you by Wicket Cricket Manager. If you're enjoying these live chats, our main channel has even more World Cup videos looking at the greatest performances, the quirkiest stats, and the epic tales of World Cup cricket. This show was made by HCLTech, a company that believes in partnership so much you can read their name on the Australian shirt. This show leans in hard on data and technology, so we are proud to work with HCLTech, leaders in their field. All right, let us get to the comments of the show. Thank you, someone in the production team getting a little bit excited there. Let's get to my favorite comment. Arslan says, your stuff is boring as shit. Then why comment on it? But thank you for the comment, because you've actually helped my channel grow. So well done, Arslan. Do people not know how the internet works? Anyway, Nabil says, my prediction in last night's hot take would have been a lot cooler had I not typed South Africa. Yeah, so Nabil said last night, and I didn't even pick it up. I think I even read it the way he wanted it to be read, but was, at that stage in the night, I'd gone through about 40 hot takes. But I said it the way, unfortunately, he typed it, which was he said that he thought that Sri Lanka would beat England and India, but he typed South Africa. And I stupidly didn't correct it for him as well. I still don't think they'll win both the games, but, England was certainly the easier of the two. I'm not sure, like, I watched that and thought to myself that, like, Sri Lanka is back. It's a little bit like Australia. You see, there's been a lot of this in this World Cup, and New Zealand might be another perfect example of this, because there aren't that many good teams. I think we see a team string a couple of wins together. Like the amount of people that were in the chat yesterday saying that Australia was really good. They beat Netherlands. Like, I'm not saying Netherlands is pants or anything, but they're supposed to beat Netherlands, right? But when they played better teams, they didn't. And I think that's exactly the same with Sri Lanka. And at the moment, you would have to say that Sri Lanka looks like a better team than England. Who doesn't look like a better team than England? Netherlands? Bangladesh. Gee, Bangladesh must be looking at that loss to England going, how did we manage to do that? Anyway, well done, Nabil. You're halfway there. Living on a prayer. Huge HPY says Butler has gone out the same way like 3 times now. Oh, I've already done that. But very good question. I did like that, but Cheyenne already had you, man. So I hope that helped. But I do think it is something that Butler does quite a bit. IndyCar says, this is why the round robin format is important. Even if we hypothetically divide strong and weak teams into equally 2 groups, there is a very good chance that the assumed strong teams are not very strong. So why does that matter for round robin? Because if this wasn't a round robin, England would already be gone. So I don't really get your point there at all, IndyCar. I think the opposite. I mean, we're now going to have to watch England for like another month, right? Like I don't really see the point there. If England were going to be this poor, they would have been this poor in a half round robin section, and we could have got on to the more serious part of the tournament early on, and they would have gone home, which we've seen in many other tournaments. And kind of any part of the early part of the tournament would have been a round robin anyway, right? So, you go back to some of the other tournaments, the Super Sixes. I think we had a Super Eights in one tournament as well. We've had plenty of round robin sections, and then making sure everyone plays each other. There's way more ways of doing it than this silly thing. Suresh says, is Pakistan worse at being out of form than England? That is a fantastic question, Suresh. Since England seem to have logic behind it and Pakistan is just bad, I would say out of the two teams, based on what we were talking about, my conversation with Bayram the other day, there are more Pakistani players in some kind of form than there are England players in some kind of form. So yes, there is more logic to what England is doing, but that doesn't really matter if all of your players are not doing particularly well. I think the majority, outside of England's batting, which I suppose I had some concerns over, but nothing like this, obviously. I think the majority of the concerns I had with Pakistan have all come true, and the majority of the concerns I had with England have all come true. But England is worse outside of that than Pakistan is. Although Pakistan have been pretty bad too. It's a fascinating question, actually. I really like it. Suresh says, 2015 or 2023? Which World Cup campaign, according to you, is the most difficult to swallow for England? These are some fantastic questions. Arslan is missing out. 2015, looking back, should be more disappointing because you knew what you had on the bench. You knew the way that you could have played cricket if you're England. 2023, they made a decision to pivot towards T20 because there were two T20 World Cups, and they won one of them. They could have won both if they had some more fit players as well. And so it's maybe more frustrating because you think, well, we should be better than this and we're pants. But we did actually just win another World Cup. 2015 maybe wasn't frustrating at that time because you were just like, well, we're always crap at white ball cricket. We've been crap at white ball cricket since, since Wasim Akram came around the wicket, right? So it doesn't matter to us that we're crap at white ball cricket. Whereas now the frustration would be is we're not crap at white ball cricket, but we've been crap in this particular tournament. And part of that reason is self-inflicted because of the way that we've gone about things. But I still think in 2015, there should have been more frustration, but it probably will be more frustration now. But do they not get some slack now? It's a fantastic question. I don't know if I've answered that at all well, but I gave it a bloody good go. Garish, our man Garish says, did England want to play this World Cup? I see no fight in them. They look like they just want to board the flight back. Have they already made the decision that one-day format is not for them? No, I mean, look, we always say this when a team's playing bad, Garish, don't we? There was a moment during the game, I can't remember who was on commentary, but was saying, oh, England looked flat out there. And it was like, Sri Lanka were like 120 for 2, chasing 150. Like, if England don't look flat in that moment, right? They just haven't played good cricket. When you don't play good cricket, so there's different things. If you're losing because the conditions have got to you, or the strategy has got to you, there's an energy in your team. The whole team may not have it, but a few players will have it where they're just like, guys, it actually won't take us a lot to bring this around, right? When you feel like every single player in your squad is out of form, you keep looking around and what are you expecting to come back? And so there is a huge amount of, I don't know, a lack of energy, right, at that point. There's a huge amount of like a lack of energy at that point. And so that's why you see no fight, because they don't know what to do. Because if you were to say, oh, we've got this wrong, we're going to look at England in the Ashes when they, lose the first 2 tests. If I got that right, remember that. They didn't look like this no fight team, but that's because they were like, well, we're in these games, we're not quite getting it right. If we just change a couple of things, we can come back. Now they might have been wrong and they might have still ended up losing that 5-0. But if you go back to the Ashes in Australia when they went 2-0 down, they were like, there's nothing that we can change. We're not going to be able to do this. That's not a lack of fight. That is a lack of answers. If you all look around and you don't know what to do, and I not been involved in either of the two teams during this World Cup, but I think after Australia's first 2 games, they actually had a chat of like, actually, there's a lot that we can do here. And I think with England, they're not sure. And when you're not sure, you look confused. And I think I just want to see. So you said if they already made the decision one-day format is up for them, they look like they don't know how to play one-day cricket though. It's not that they've made any decisions. The players have said they wanted to play more of it coming into this World Cup. They've been very clear. Thank you for your super chat. Ashok said, do you think a difference in wickets taken versus wickets conceded could replace net run rate? Makes it easier for the average fan to understand? No, because that's not really how the game is played, Ashok. I think if you're going to do that, and I've talked about it before, I think a better thing than net run rate would be net run rate and average net average wickets would be far better. A way of doing it, because you don't get the games like that stupid one when New Zealand got a huge net run rate for beating Australia by like a wicket or 2 wickets. I don't think fans have any confusion with net run rate. I've never heard that. It kind of, once it's explained to you, it's fairly simple, isn't it? If you want to know though, in the old days they used to just had run rate, which was a little bit crazy and didn't make a lot of sense and had much more to do with the wickets, of course. Thank you very much for the super chat. Nuval says, should squads try to de-emphasize the captaincy? It seems that just be putting a target on talented players' backs. Every other sport uses a coach or manager to try absorb the heat from the press and the fans. Well, the problem with that, Nuval, is you can't, right? You can't take away from the fact that it's funny. I'm trying to remember now. Mina Coombs, is it Mina Coombs? Mina Coombs? I forget her name. The ESPN analyst was talking about quarterbacks, and she was saying that the quarterback is the most contextual position based on your teammates. All right. So if you're a great quarterback and no one can catch, none of your receivers can catch, or you don't get the right blocks, or your running backs aren't good at finding gaps, or whatever that may be, all that NFL stuff, right? You're not very good. And I was like, well, cricket captains even more so. And you are and you're not just a quarterback hearing something from your coaching staff and then making a decision. You're having to do all that on the field on your own. And so it is a really important thing. But there's a lot of people. I don't know how you can look back at this World Cup and suggest that Baba Azam, Josh Butler, I'm trying to think, is there another captain who's been slagged off as well? I feel like there's another one I'm missing. Are the reason these teams are losing, right? In the same way that, Australia wasn't losing early on because of their leadership either. And yet we do this in cricket, and you're right. But I don't think there's a way away from that either, Nuval, because they are the person on the field making the decisions. And, as someone who works in cricket, it's a really complicated process of where does the coach fit in? If you have a general manager, where does the general manager fit in? If you've got a chairman of selectors, all these different things. And I don't think we've actually come up with a really good answer for how those things work. Where are we here? Will says, is it odd that as an England fan, I find this performance funny? No one does implosions quite like England. I don't know, Pakistan might give you a one there. I mean, I don't know how you feel as an English fan, Will. I mean, I think I'd be frustrated at going down the over-attacking route if I'd been paying attention, if I was an England fan, just because I'd be like, have we? Doesn't feel like we've over-attacked. In fact, it feels like we maybe haven't attacked as well as we should have, or as much as we should have. So I think that would frustrate me a little bit. But you're holding 2 World Cups. You've got the whole Bazball thing. Like, compare that to Pakistan, right? Or Sri Lanka over the last long period of time, or the West Indies fan. Like, I think from an English fan perspective, you have to say that you had a really, really good run. It's interesting. Actually, I'll go into the next question because Murugasan says, if England go for a complete overhaul, who should they keep? So this is interesting. So we had a podcast with me and Matt Roller where I wasn't as sure that England had fixed all the issues and they were going to be a success all the way through. And Matt's written the book on the white ball team and on what they've done. So he's more over it than I am, to be fair. And it's his job. He's the T20 writer for Cricinfo based in England, right? Like, it's a huge part of his beat, and it's a smaller part of my beat, although I've followed it all the way through as well. Being this is the first, World Cup I haven't been to with, following the England team around. Since 2011, right? And so, I was there in 2016, I was there in 2015, I was there in 2019, 2017, all those, the key ones when things were getting forward. But my theory was that this team was getting older and that I didn't see the same level of talent coming through that I did whether it be with my eye test or with my numbers, looking at England cricket. So I wondered if this was more of a golden generation, because so many of those players got good playing Pro 40 cricket. And Pro 40 cricket hasn't existed since, let's say, 2011, 2012, somewhere around that period. So that tells you how long ago that was. And Milan, Moeen, Bairstow, Morgan, Butler, Stokes, all those guys, Root, all dominated. Hales, Roy, all dominated in Pro 40 in at least 1 year, some of them multiple years. That's a long time ago. And so even when you get Milan coming to this side, he's still from that generation, right? Livingston is the one that, was coming through, but you look at Livingston, Banton, I'm trying to think of some of the others, that Phil Salt sort of generation, right? They don't look at the same level and of those other guys. And maybe they can't be, because, your generation changes and everything else. So I do think that these things are very, very interesting. So you say who they should keep. They've got a T20 World Cup coming up very shortly, right? Is this something that they should worry about for that? Or is this an ODI only issue for them? How do they actually mentally think about this? And is it that their players are aging out? Or is it that they made a few other key mistakes? Could it possibly just be that they don't have a lot of bowlers as well, and they got into a bit of a funk, and then they've had a bad batting tournament? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's a really interesting one when they actually sit down and have a look at all this. Maha. Is it Melha? Melha. I think it's Melha. Melha says, Joe Root seems to be essential to England's batting than Smith is to Australia or Kohli to India. Yeah, I've always kind of thought this, Melha. I think that Joe Root is much more than his numbers. I think that in him embracing that new method of play, when it would have been much easier for him to just knock the ball around and get huge counting stats and have a strike rate of 85 and even 90 and never look like getting out. And he pushed himself, and he was a big part of it. But I've said from the start, it's Joe Root, Morgan, and Stokes as that group was really, really important. I thought that was what they built their ODI cricket on. And I thought that was what was the difference. Having three players at that level, having the ability for all three of them to score very quickly, all of them to be quite selfless. In the case of Root and Stokes, you had a little bit of bowling talent there as well. In Morgan's case, you had captaincy. There was just a lot of pluses from that. And yes, the all-rounders helped, and then Jofra Archer helped, and the strategies, the way they went about it, all those things helped. But I always saw, if you go back to all my stuff, that middle overs machine is what I thought was absolutely crucial. And it takes three people to do it. And they don't have it here. Joe Root hasn't been playing enough ODI cricket. Stokes clearly hasn't been playing enough ODI cricket, and Morgan is commentating. That's a huge issue for them in this particular tournament. All right, I will take another short break here. And then after the break, if you want to put in any more super chats or just general chats, and I'll have a look. But thank you to everyone for all the chats so far. You're listening to Scoreboard with Jared Kimber. And can't find my ad, of course, now. And here it is. Have you ever wondered how I watch so much cricket? I use VPNs to log into accounts from all around the world. But because before, even simple things like when something exciting would happen in a match, I would rush over to social media, and when I got there, the clips would say something along the lines of, this video is not available in your area. In fact, most of the coolest cricket stuff in the world at the moment is geo-blocked because some random board didn't sign a deal where you happen to live. If you're a hardcore cricket nerd, the only way is to have a VPN, and we suggest Surfshark. They will give you the speed of your favorite quick bowler. They're as inventive as a T20 batter after a bunch of dot balls, and they're as secure as a specialist wicketkeeper with the softest hands in the world. And guess what? The kind folks at Surfshark are going to give you a deal. Enter the promo code Kimber for an extra 3 months free at surfshark.deals/Kimber. There are probably other things that Surfshark can help you with, like data and identity theft and traceability and intrusive advertising. But for us, it is our best weapon against the evil cricket geo-block. Go to Surfshark and type my name in, KIMBER, and get 3 months free today. Welcome back to the Scoreboard. If there's any more super chats, I'll get to them, but I've got about another 5 or 6 comments and questions, so I'll bring them up. Nithin says, given that England has adopted a T20 approach for ODIs, the ODI approach for test matches, is it time for England to adopt the 100 approach for ODIs? That's harder to read than I wanted it to be. And you see, I don't think they ever played ODI cricket like it was T20, but I get your joke. I think if you really want to be honest, and that, you know, we've already done a video on this, but I do think a big part of it was they believed they had such a system in place that would just allow them to recreate it really easily without playing a lot of ODI cricket. And what happened is part of it crumbled. Part of it wasn't as strong as it used to be because it is aging out a little bit. And then they've had bad form. And those three things have just absolutely put it down. But yeah, they should play like the 100. Imagine if they, that's what I think I was saying in the opening. Like, if they'd actually just gone in and started smashing the ball everywhere, you know, they would have won the Moral World Cup. And isn't that what things are really about? Tushar says, I love tournaments where Team A beats Team B and Team B beats Team C. No such thing as a sure win. I think that is fine if it's not like 9 games of it, if that makes sense. I think what we've seen is there's probably, let's say, 3 teams that we think are pretty good. Let's put Australia in a tier on their own. And then there's a couple other teams that are playing better than we expect them to at this stage, and a couple other teams playing worse than they're playing at this stage. The problem with this long format and what you're saying, the Team A beats Team B, team beats Team C, is that is actually a fantastic thing in like a 4-team round robin section, right? But at a certain point, it's just like, well, it's just dragging on, I think. And that's why I don't think the actual format works. Jenla says, is there any chance of Sri Lanka qualifying for the playoffs? If Pakistan lose tomorrow, top 4 is fixed. I didn't get a chance to look at it. I would have to go back and have a look at the points table. But basically, the game finishes and I have to come across here and do my show. I would have thought that Sri Lanka still had a chance, but they got 2 wins and 3 losses. Don't they have an easy second half of the draw? So I think there's still a chance of getting. So it's got 2 wins, 3 losses. They could, yeah. So yeah, I think they still have a chance for sure. But a net run rate, I think, and again, I don't have the full details in front of me, but the net run rate thing might be an issue for them anyway, just because of that Netherlands win. It is hilarious to see when England won the 2019 World Cup and a few test series, the narrative is England are reinventing test and ODI cricket. And when they perform poorly, the narrative is ODI cricket is dying. He's talking about the English media. I think that was his follow-up thing. Percy, it's really interesting. I've seen this a lot. I saw Ben from Wisden tweeted something out, and a bunch of people slagged him off. And I was like, before this tournament, I saw lots of Indians tweeting this out. In fact, who was the first person to say publicly that this could be the last 50 overs World Cup? It wasn't an English person. It was an Indian. It was KSR, right? And the other reason that this is happening is that I think a few of us are getting leaked to by similar people or people who are having similar conversations about this very fact. So that's why. I'm not an English journalist, obviously, but if you go back, Percy, before England was struggling in this World Cup, I was saying the same thing. And I think we might have, me, Bayram, KSR. So there's a Pakistani, an Indian, and an Australian. I think we all came about it in a similar kind of way, which was there is a possibility this might be the last one. There have been discussions about that at the highest level. ODI cricket was certainly dying before we got to this World Cup. But if you really want to know where it comes from, Percy, it comes from the broadcasters. The broadcasters thought that in this next cycle coming up, that we could change from the 50-over World Cup being the most important to the 20-over World Cup being the most important. That's not the English media. That is literally the people who pay the bills, right? And now the cricket boards are going to the ICC, and I think England were one of them, which doesn't quite fit your narrative because you were talking about the press, but England board was certainly one of them, going, what are we doing with ODI cricket? This doesn't make any sense. some of the lower end boards have been saying for a while, we don't make any money off this anymore. And it's weird because we're also in a situation, Percy, where this World Cup, this 50 over World Cup will make more money than any World Cup we've ever had before. And on top of that, it gets even weirder because, of course, the 50 over World Cup makes more money than the 20 over World Cup does, right? And you could argue that at least until it just happens naturally, it would actually make more sense to get rid of the 50 over World Cup if you were desperate to make the 20 over World Cup more important. But why would you get rid of the 50 over World Cup when it's working? But the World Cup isn't the issue. All right. No one really, outside of the broadcasters, everyone else doesn't have an issue with the World Cup. It's all the other ODIs. And to be honest, as someone who covers international cricket, I very rarely look at one day cricket outside of, in the lead up to a tournament now, just because if I did, I wouldn't, it's just so much extra work for me. And I get very little out of it, and the games aren't taken as seriously, and the players are all being rested all the time. There is an issue with it, Percy, and it isn't just, as I said, KSR was the guy who started this ball rolling as much as anything. He heard from one person. I then went and asked a couple of other people. I still don't think this will be the last 50 over World Cup, but I can see why KSR thought it would be, and I can also see now why the boards. And if you go back when I was first talking about this, when I first said it, a bunch of people got very upset. And I said, the reason I'm writing about this is because it's already being discussed. That is why a lot of other people are doing that. The other problem was that we just had a comment about how the top four could be completely solid, and yet we have all these games to go. So the ICC has no one to blame but themselves. If for the next 2 weeks we talk about the death of ODI cricket, they've been unlucky that I haven't had any close games, and those things obviously massively matter. I've seen a lot of people go, "Oh, it's not why we watch one-day cricket." It's like, well, it is actually kind of the reason that one-day cricket was invented as much as anything, is that it gave us more close finishes, and T20 even more so. But when you go through, when you actually, they're unlucky with that, but they chose this format, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to go with this format when there are certainly better tournament options out there. And I'm not a tournament planner. But I don't think it would take you too long to find a better format than we could have had here. As I said, you could have had the old double round robin games scenario and had India play Pakistan twice. We've actually done that before in World Cups. Weirdly, when we did that in World Cups, India and Pakistan didn't actually play each other at that World Cup, which is remarkable how far cricket has changed. Lawrence says, who pushes India all the way? New Zealand, Australia, or South Africa? I'm a Safa, so I'm going with South Africa. So, Lawrence, I don't know if you've seen the latest video, but we went into the history of South Africa and also, how they go in chasing. There's no way I think South Africa beat India chasing. I'll happily have that. It would be hilarious if they managed to. So I'll happily get that wrong. But I think that if South Africa bat first against India, I think that's a really interesting thing, because you've got two teams playing to their strengths there. And I think that India's weakness is better than South Africa's weakness. So if it's flipped, I think India is in a better situation. But I can see why, South Africa have the ability to take regular wickets, and their batting lineup is almost automatic. But they are going to be going up against the team that takes the most wickets ever. And that is when South Africa is going to be challenged. But if you're asking me if South Africa could beat India, they can. If you're asking me if it's likely, it's probably not likely. Australia, I still worry about Australia facing, Kuldeep and Jadeja in the middle overs, the way that they've been playing spin, especially if the Indian seamers can get a couple of wickets. Australian bowling lineup, I thought held up okay against India. It's just that they dropped that catch when they were probably on top in that game, and they didn't have many to defend. And Zampa bowled a little bit with a wet ball. So that's an interesting matchup again. There's no reason why any of those three teams, including New Zealand, can't beat them. But all those teams have one or two weaknesses that can be exploited in a way that India doesn't currently have. And so it's a knockout game at the end of the tournament. As someone said the other day, the best way of playing the finals would probably be, best of three in the semifinals and the final. The old best of seven American style would be, maybe the best way of working out who the greatest team was. So India can certainly lose those games. But India should be in a better position to win those games than anyone else, just because there's less things that you can exploit. Doesn't mean that Matt Henry won't run through them, right? And they play New Zealand in the first semi-final. Matt Henry takes 4 wickets in the first 3 overs, and that's it, right? Those things can happen. But they are in a position that is much stronger than the other teams. The other teams still have strengths, though. They have strengths that they can beat India with. It's just not as clear cut. That's me for today. It's probably the earliest one I've done. Thank you, England. Every other time a team's collapsed, they've managed to string the game out a little bit further, but England did very, very well here for me, and I can do a bunch of other stuff for the rest of the day. Huge thanks to everyone for coming on again. New channel, even people like Arslan, everyone who's come on board, for the comments, the likes, the subscribes. If this is the first time on this channel, please subscribe because it just helps us out massively. A big thanks to everyone who did the super chats as well. Who did we have there? Malhar, Nuval, Ashok, Girish. Hugely important to us. As important as the sponsorship of this channel is as well. And as you already know now, we will be back again after tomorrow's game and after the next game and after the next game, because this scoreboard, it never dies.
Support us on Patreon. Join for exclusive perks like AMAs, live calls with me, and a vibrant Discord community. Enjoy ad-free content, early podcast episodes, and access to my emailer, plus behind-the-scenes stuff. We've built our channel on Patreon support, so a huge thanks to everyone who has helped. If you like these live chats, head over to our main channel where we have all sorts of video on this World Cup. There'll be several every week with all the latest trends, stories, and incredible historical context. This show was made by HCLTech, a company that believes in partnership so much you can read their name on the Australian shirt. This show leans in hard on data and technology, so we are proud to work with HCLTech, leaders in their field. Have you ever considered a career in sports? If you're passionate about writing, creating videos, or podcasting within the sports realm, I have the perfect course for you, Fans with Laptops. It is based on my career of someone who broke into this job despite the fact that at the age of 28, I was parking cars for a living. Take advantage of all the mistakes I made, use your passion, and enroll in the course today. Express your cricket fandom with Bodyline t-shirts. Discover their extensive range of player-inspired tees, featuring cricket legends such as Murali, Warne, and Wasim. With team-themed designs and options for hardcore cricket nerds, they've got you covered no matter what your interest in cricket.
A few years ago, I had a panic attack after ESPN Cricinfo made me their global writer. I'd earned that position, but I also felt like a fraud at the time because I didn't really understand how I wrote. I understand that there was a process and gears and different styles and things, but how it all came together felt a little bit random. And so I began to panic like a golfer with a natural swing, worried one day I'd just end up with the yips. And would my career be over? So I took my writing apart piece by piece until I understood it. And then I figured out I could teach others all the mistakes I had learned. So I started an online course where I tried to make it as cheap as possible so people like me would be able to afford it. It's called Fans with Laptops, and heaps of people from around the world have used it so far, from first-time writers all the way through to professionals trying to improve. I started with a simple plan to make each writer the best they could be. And from the feedback I've received over the years, it seems like the course does that. But after COVID, my career changed. I came to YouTube, started podcasts, wrote emails, and formed a new career on my own going forward. So I now had something else to offer, the multimedia side of things, social media and everything else. Not to mention that I was building everything up as an independent. And so I added all of that to my course. So if you have ever wanted to work in sports as a writer or podcaster, making videos or anything else, Fans with Laptops is the place to start. If you think you qualify as a fan and you have a laptop and you want to work in sport, click on the link.
If you follow my work, you'll be very tired because I produce a metric ass ton of content, and I can't do all of that myself. I also can't afford an army of people to do it for me. So what I needed was a solution to get all my analysis, hot takes, and random asides out on social media. And I found that with Memento, the AI tool that basically takes all of my work and cuts it up, makes it look pretty, and pushes it all over the internet. If you have content and you need to repackage it, use Memento. If you enjoy our content, we ask you to hit the like button, subscribe, or drop a comment along the lines of, "Wow, Jared, your vibes are immaculate." Additionally, sharing our work on social media, supporting us in super chats, and helping us out on Patreon or buy me a coffee all mean the world to us. Like our stuff? Please support us by whacking that subscribe button like it's a short ball. Or you could just leave a comment expressing your admiration, such as, "Wow, Jared, you're the Aubrey Faulkner of YouTubers." Also, please help us spread the word by sharing our work across social media, back us on Patreon, or also support us with live